Yes, Rohan Patel, comic book movie. Hey, Brian,
Right.
how are you?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I had a blast with this special, and then
Good.
um, and I feel like it worked better as a special than like as a mini series where you're drawing things out. And
Mhm.
since it's sort of told from as much as from Elsa's perspective as it is from Jack's, could this Halloween specials and these Christmas specials that are the holiday special that's coming sort of become like an annual thing in the MCU where we're meeting all these different kinds of characters?
I think one of the things we liked about it is that because it's a special, it's a little bit shorter and you just sort of dive into that character. Like you said, we're not necessarily planning to spend, you know, a ton of hours with them in this first iteration. We want to explore them down the way, but we like looking at this as a little taste, a little tease of what these characters could be when they break further into the MCU. I think that we'll start looking at ways to have these happen, whether it's tied to a holiday or a theme or a special thing like that. I don't want to promise that every Halloween or every New Year's or Christmas or something like that we're going to have one. But I will say that it's the benefit of being on Disney Plus has opened up these opportunities for us to do something fun like this and create an homage to a classic Hollywood film, but that fits in that sort of sweet spot of a special.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, like you're saying, on it's on Disney Plus, and oftentimes it's kind of because the Disney branding, you're like, how far can we push the envelope? Because
Sure.
you're like, and this special is very violent, and it felt like you're all like in the James Whale film almost. And so like, what are those sort of discussions like when you're determining this behind the scenes about how far you can actually push the envelope in terms of uh different characters demand different things. Like Moon Knight's
Mhm.
darker, Werewolf's darker. So how what are those discussions like?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Each character has its own approach, and part of that is what we know from the comics. Part of that is also the style of the story that we want to tell, right? If we were telling a romantic comedy, it probably would have looked a little bit different than if we were
Mm.
telling, something that has all these nods to horror movies. And I will say that it just is what makes sense for the story and what we're telling and what's happening. We love being able to put things on Disney Plus. I think the benefit is just the wide swath of options that we have, whether we're looking at something like Werewolf by Night, which is totally different than She-Hulk, which is totally different than Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is totally different than Loki. You don't get just one thing; you get a whole smorgasbord of options to watch.
And so like and I have to ask because like we are getting Werewolf by Night, Elsa
Mhm.
Bloodstone's in this, Man Thing's in this, and Blade's on his way. Doctor Strange is very active. So like, what can you say about the prospect of a Midnight Suns project? Is that something you'd like to see yourself?
I think the Midnight Suns are great from all their history in the comics. It's fun to see all these people come together. What I will say is that with Werewolf by Night, we are just seeing we're just peeling back that corner a little bit and seeing that there's a darker uh, section of the MCU that you haven't seen before. The MCU is not just, the Avengers, as the special starts out by saying. There's a whole bunch of people, and there's a whole bunch of aliens, there's a whole bunch of planets, there's a whole bunch of areas to explore. And so this is just our first look into something that is probably a little different than what we've shown before in the previous movies and shows.
Mm. So yeah, I can't wait for that. And so like you have I don't unless I missed it. There was no post credits in this
No,
special. Was that so okay.
no,
And
yeah,
so
sorry, you didn't miss anything. Just
all right. So like were there any plans to sort of introduce like others because I think a lot of monsters are teased, but we only see Man Thing and Werewolf by Night. So like what were the plans for sort of like vampires and all that kind of stuff?
I think the world of monsters is bigger than we've seen in the special in the MCU. But our whole idea with this was to make it a tease. That's why maybe tease is the wrong word. I'm trying to make it something that's just sort of like an appetizer.
Mhm.
We wanted to show you that this exists. We want to show you all those monsters that were around, the images, the pictures, the different ones that we saw in the special. But we like to let your imagination run a little wild to see what else could be out there. And part of that comes from Michael Giacchino, who in making this said, well, we want it to be have those horror elements and to have a couple scares and things like that. But with music and with those old movies, what was scarier were the things that you didn't see, right? Like there's a reason in Jaws that you don't see the shark for the whole runtime of the movie. You just see him pop up at key points. And so that was part of our approach to making this and our thought of going forward. We want you to be worried about what's in the shadows. We don't want you to see what's in the shadows.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Brian. I love this special. So because I love those Universal monster movies, so this was like right up my wheelhouse. But thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.